and I looked at all my other times tables and made the pattern for each one. And once I had the pattern for myself, all of a sudden maths opened up. And, you know, when we got to algebra and stuff, easy, because it's a pattern. That's all it is. It's a pattern. It's a shape. It's a same dance every time. And people, but what I couldn't do was remember equations. I couldn't remember equations ever. So if I have to do an equation, I have to calculate it from first principles. I have to work out what's which of course, when you do maths exams and you're supposed to know these equations, bit of a hindrance. And the other one was, the more I got used to the pattern, the more I could see the answer without having to do any conscious calculation. And they go, well, show how you got there. And I said, well, I read the question and I went, the answer is 32.
Ooh,
and they go, well, how did you do that? And I said, I read the question and in my head it said the answer is 32. That's how I did it. And they said, but what are the steps? And I said, the step is I read the question.
Yeah, I always struggle having to explain my process to people, like especially when I was taking physics. Like my professor hated me because I hated showing my work. Why? We're doing fluid dynamics and I'm showing you integrals. Sir, I don't need to show you work. You know I know what I'm doing. So there needs to be nothing else said or done.
Yeah.
But no, of course I have to show my work. I have to show how I got from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, when that's not how my brain works. My brain skips from 1 to 4, trails back to 2, and then we get the answer.
Yeah.
Like it's a confusing process that is not what the professor is going to be asking for. So why am I going to give it to him in the first place?
Yeah.
Or her, or whoever.
I you know, when I taught in engineering in school, and I coached quite a few of the students in maths as well. And we just said, look, maths exams don't make sense. They do not test your mathematical ability. Rather think of them like Mario Kart. That you have the ability to get round the course in 30 seconds flat. Great. But in doing so, you have missed every single ring on the course. Writing down those steps is jumping for those rings. Without jumping for those rings, you don't get the points. It doesn't matter that the answer is right. It doesn't matter that you hit nothing. If you didn't pick up those rings, you get nothing. And so we just had to learn how to pick up the rings. We had to learn where the power-ups were, what where the bonus round was, and so again, what would happen was they would do the question, write down the answer, and then they would do the rings and they would write down the steps that they didn't actually follow, but were required for the mark to get the score. And occasionally it helped, because occasionally
they teach you how to memorize an equation, the format of the equation, and the correct answer to that exact format, to that exact equation, which is horrible, because how are you teaching us comprehension of this answer in this equation if you're only giving us one fixed answer and one fixed equation? Knowing good and well, if we go into the real world and apply this math to real world situations, those equations and answers are as variable as the world we live in. So it just doesn't make any sense for Like I always hated taking tests. Like every single one of them I hated it because it besides maybe my physics in high school and college and maybe my math in college, like everything else was just maybe even my history course and my history courses at TCC when after I came home. Like, but besides those courses, like even my psychology course was just
Yeah.
teaching you memorization. Like, you're not trying to actually understand how a child's brain develops from year one to year two. You're just trying to remember all these different stages to the brain. You're trying to memorize all these terms. Like, you're not trying to really understand what the what Freud, Watson, and all those old psychologists were talking about when they were saying that we're animals, that we have a very animal-like mind because we're animals. So we have to treat ourselves in that way. If we get into a habit, you have to train yourself out of that habit. That's how it works.
And
But of
it's like,
course, we avoid simple little anecdotes like that because, oh, that doesn't apply to me now. We live in 2024. They're old, and a lot of people have said that they're wrong, so they must be.
oh,
What? No.
I mean, it's like I was reading because I talk about dino brain a lot
Mm.
because you know when we're in under threat, our amygdala kicks in and it protects us. And I call it
Yes.
my dino brain. It's because it's you know back to dinosaur era primal, and it's based on lizard brain because I thought, well, you know, a lizard. If you've ever had a meltdown, a lizard just doesn't do the damage that a dinosaur does.
Hmm.
You know, you try and picture a lizard on the rampage, and you just can't see it. And someone said, "Oh no, but lizard brain doesn't exist." And she showed me the paper, and the paper actually goes. The person who wrote it thought that when we talk about lizard brain, they meant an actual lizard brain that we had. The amygdala functioned like a lizard,
Hmm.
but we're not lizards. We didn't come from lizards. We didn't develop from lizards. So why would it resemble a lizard's brain? I mean, you know,
Right.
thermostat alone going to be different. Plus, small little reptiles' defense responses are going to be different to somebody our size. We've
Hmm.
got more options. You know, if I'm a skunk, you know, a skink, for instance, you know, with his detachable tail, my dino brain is going to go release tail run.
Right.
That's the option. Whereas we've got much more sophisticated options for our protection. But to
Hmm.
go, oh, but that means the lizard brain doesn't exist. No, it does. The primal defense, the shut everything down, lock everything out, we're protecting you now, bit of the brain.
Like,
Absolutely exists.
we're animals. We have a fight or flight response. It's
Yeah.
and honestly, it is as simple as that. But dino brain, I'm using that from now on. So when people ask me, yes, it's dino brain, and your animalistic instincts kicking in, telling you to fight or flight. So calm down, relax, breathe for a second. You're okay.
Yeah. And it's,
Like
you know, and you've got, well, I mean, because you've got your panic, you've got the defensive duo, you know, you've got your panic monkey, God bless him, um, who is your in your limbic, part of your limbic system, who is your health and safety officer, your risk assessor.
yeah.
And because our nervous system is more vulnerable, we are more at risk. So our panic monkey is much more active and much more on the alert because there's more to protect from. And you know, when they see a risk, they may go, Dino brain, come in. Time for you to take over because guess what? The logic brain isn't doing it here. The logic brain isn't
Right.
looking after us. You're going to have to step in and take
The
over.
logic brain is processing, well, the logic brain is taking in too much to process. It's
Yeah, the
processing much.
logic brain's
It's
overloading. It's too busy. There's all sorts of things, you know, and sometimes we just doesn't function fast enough, and Dino brain goes in, and then you've got your fight and your flight, or in my case, fawn. My brain prefers fawn and flood. So excessive people pleasing to try and, so my dino brain is a hero hunter. It's looking for somebody to protect me. So either I try and placate the person I see as a threat and I fawn, or I go into flood to call somebody in, just like a baby cries, goes, bursts into tears because they're hungry or they're thirsty or because they're alone and they think the saber-toothed tiger is coming and they're attention seeking. That's exactly what it is. I'm under threat. I'm about to die. Somebody please pay attention because I need protection here. That's what attention seeking is, protect me. And flood does that. And I know other people who don't even do that, that they go one step lower. Their dino brain goes one step lower and goes, I can't protect you. Anything I do to try and protect you is going to put you in more danger. So tell you what, I'm going to play dead. I'm just going to get you to sit very, very still here and very, very quiet here and hope the threat gets bored and goes away because I've got nothing. So yeah, we'll just sit here and hope. And of course, that if you've got somebody who's been trained into doing that, it is so bad for your mental health. Because you will, even outside of dino brain, if your brain is doing that, you have told yourself, your brain is so hardwired now to never ask for help, to never seek help, to never expect help. That there is no hope because you just sit here and you hope, you just sit and wait and hope you don't die. This is not good for your mental health. It does long-term damage.
Yeah, I've been there before.
And people don't get that, and they go, "Oh, but they're so good in class. They're either they're so good in class, they're always volunteering, yet they're in fawn, or they're so good in class, they're a bit daydreamy. They don't see, they do seem to miss things a bit, but they struggle with their attention, but they're so good." And I'm thinking, no, that's the disconnect. That's a flop. That you are witnessing flop here. This is a child in serious distress, and you're doing nothing. You're doing nothing about it because it's not bothering you. At the very least, I mean, at school, fight absolutely is not something you want to encourage dino brain to do. It's going to get you in trouble every single time, and you could seriously
you wanna either talk or flight.
Yeah, but flight, we should learn to flight. We should be taught into flight, taught how to, be allowed to leave the classroom the instant we start to feel on edge. We should be allowed to leave the situation. We should be allowed to walk away. And the number of times where I have hit overload, I started to walk away, and the so-and-so who has created the overload will just follow on and keep going. And I'm thinking, I'm escaping right now. Do you not see the escape? Just let me out of here. I've said I've had enough. I've said I'm going, and you are pursuing me. Stop it. Because if you don't, I will go to fight, and you will not like that. I will not like that. And I'm quite good. At that point, I will go to verbal fight, and if I go to verbal fight, I hit the target. I will really hit the target, and people do not recover from verbal. Things I have said to them when I'm in fight in that situation, people don't recover from it very well because they get the truth full barrel, very blunt, very hard, very fast, and I don't want to do it. But when dino brain is in, I don't have a choice. Dino brain makes the choice for me. I mean, I don't know if you've had those situations where dino brain's made the choice.
A few times. I don't know. I'm kind of just like going back through, I guess, my life and just thinking, like I've been in, like because I've been, I don't know, like reactive abuse, uh, the narcissistic abuse, the trauma I've experienced, like all just everything that I just
Yeah, because that intertwines too. And often, I mean, we try and say, oh, autistics are saints, but autistics are not saints. An undiagnosed autistic can be as abusive, if not more abusive, than a non.
yeah.
Because if they are constantly in dino brain, if they're constantly with panic monkey bouncing and always feeling under threat, then guess what? They're always going to be on the attack.
Hmm.
And they will do what animals do. They go for the weaker, they go for somebody weaker to make themselves feel stronger. Which means, we as kids end up being on the receiving end of stuff that we should never be on the receiving end of because our parent
We're
wasn't
all
diagnosed.
punching bags.
And you get they look what you made me do, and yeah. So a lot of us don't come. We have got to get the diagnosis rates up, because if we can get the diagnosis rates up, hopefully we can start breaking this cycle.
Start breaking all the cycles.
Um, and I mean, sometimes I mean, I know for me, I was so mad about the way I was treated. I made a promise to myself as a kid that I would never do the same thing, and so made sure that I didn't do the same thing as an adult.
Hmm.
Whereas people I know in the same situation as me told themselves that their parents loved them and that they deserved to be treated that way, and that they had caused it, and they were the ones. And so when the same thing happens with their kids, they repeat the same pattern, because if they deserved it as kids, then their kids deserve it too. So it goes two ways. But yeah, the more we can break the pattern, the more we can say, look, punishment doesn't work. It doesn't serve a purpose. Because it doesn't. Punishment never serves a purpose. Because if somebody is doing something wrong, it's because they're lacking the ability and the skills to do it right.
Correct. The understanding to do it right.
And so,
The
punishment doesn't change that.
why they. Yeah.
Education changes that.
Hmm.
When my little one was 2, they hit. When they got frustrated, they hit. Why did they hit? Because they not got the words or the
Hmm.
understanding to express how they were feeling. That's all they had. If I want to make an impact on you, I need to make a literal impact on you. But guess what? As they got older and they were taught words, and they were taught negotiation skills, and they were taught other ways of dealing with the frustration, they used those instead.
Hmm.
But if I had just said it's a bad thing to hit, and I mean, in my family, we had the very bizarre situation of, it's a bad thing to hit, so I'm going to hit you now to teach you that it's a bad thing to hit. And I thought that just doesn't make sense.
Like you have to explain why it's bad to hit.
But I mean, also, if you were hitting a child and you're saying it's bad to hit, how does that logic doesn't work out? You know,
No,
I'm going to teach you it's bad to hit by hitting you.
no, what I'm actually doing is teaching you to hit and to now feel bad about hitting other people, but to still keep doing it, which
Yeah.
actually might create a sadist at that point.
And if it's okay to do it if the person is smaller and weaker than you.
Yeah.
And it's okay to do it if you don't like what they're doing. And there's all sorts of messages that go with it that don't make sense. And it's just I remember, my parents go, well, why don't you just smack them then? I said, well, no, because that doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make any logical sense for me to say, I'm going to hit you to teach you not to hit. If I'm going to teach them not to hit, I teach them how not to hit. I teach them how to do other things, how to go, use their voice, how to walk away, how to express their frustration in other ways. That's how you teach. You build skills. That's it. And I mean, one of the things I hate in school for neurodivergence, I mean, ADHD and autistics, is that most teachers aren't taught what skills we need. They aren't taught our skill gaps. They aren't taught what support we need. So even fundamentals like don't give 3 instructions at once, because our brain has so much processing going on that we can't hold 3 at once. Instruction 1 will come in, instruction 2 will bump instruction 1 out, instruction 3 will bump instruction 2 out. And we're left with the final statement, but not sure where we started from.
Mm.
And the teacher said, well, I went through it. No, you didn't. Not in our way, not the way our brain works.
You didn't go through the material in a way that I would understand it. You went through the material in a way that you assumed, and then you try to tell the teacher that they're selfish in that way, and then they look at you like, I'm not selfish. How am I selfish? Like what? How you like anytime any autistic asks any adult or any authoritative figure for help, it's always no, you have to do it my way or else you don't get any help. But then we try to tell them that they aren't providing us the right help or they aren't hearing us out. It's now we need help because we are seeing error in them. Like
Yeah.
that.
No, and it's things like leaving the classroom. I mean, that is fundamental protection 101. The ability to be able to leave the classroom and get somewhere safe and somewhere quiet. And what is happening, I mean, in schools in the UK, I don't know if it's the same in the States, they're banning toilet breaks. So young people, when they were overwhelmed by a question or they didn't, they couldn't engage with the work and they couldn't get in, they were going on toilet breaks because, well, that's obvious. You go somewhere quiet, you take a break, you take a beat, you get yourself settled, you come back. And school goes, oh, no, you're taking time out of classrooms. That's not acceptable. And they've started locking the toilets except for break. They lock the toilets except for break times.
Wow.
To stop children trying to escape the lesson. Well, instead of going, why are the students trying to escape the lesson? What are the stresses in this class? What are the things in this lesson they're not accessing that means that they need to leave? That's the bit that should be. Because I had when I did engineering and we did stuff that they were interested in, our classes were 2 hours long and very often we'd roll into break time because they still had questions and still wanted to do stuff. Because it was taught their way, it was taught in a way that they enjoyed, it was interesting to them, very, very important. And the thing is, if they wanted to go to the loo at any time, they went. If they wanted to go and walk the corridor, if they, don't vandalize anything, please. But if you're just going to go for a walk, go for it. It's a building. Don't head down the high street, but if you're in the building, then you're safe, and go regulate.
Right.
And weirdly, because they knew they could, most of the time they never wanted to or never needed to, because the door was open. So they didn't feel trapped. They didn't feel anxious because they were trapped. They didn't feel stuck. They didn't feel panicked. And this is people don't understand, is if somebody is functioning well because you've accommodated them, they're functioning well because you've accommodated them. It doesn't mean they're fixed. It doesn't mean they're cured. It doesn't mean you don't have to accommodate them anymore. It means the accommodation is working, so keep doing the accommodation. But so often schools and workplaces don't get that. They think of accommodations as a sort of temporary, let's cure you type of thing.
I'm on the fence about certain. No, I can't.
Yeah.
I haven't done too much research into the IEP and 504 plans and some of these schools. But it takes the parents, like it takes them an arm and a leg just to get the child the right accommodations at these schools. And it shouldn't be that way. Like why are they having to talk to the principal instead of just the special resource teacher or special education teacher? Like why is the parent now having to talk to everyone in the school just to make sure their child gets treated correctly, when it should just be on the job of the person who was hired to do that in the first place?
Yeah. And this is it. I mean, the thing is, teachers, most teachers I know, if they knew how autistics and ADHD brains worked, would be actually happy to accommodate them. But because they've been taught by the head teachers, by teacher training, that this is intentional, willful, bad behavior that you need to bully out of the child. That you need to shame them, you need to wave rewards around that you can withhold. You need to make them unsafe in order for them to behave. Well, actually, that the complete opposite is true. The more unsafe a child is, the more anxious they're going to become, the more dino brain and panic monkey is going to be involved, and the more they're going to struggle to control their defensive behaviors.
Correct.
And it's just, I wish teacher training was sorted out for that. But again, we have the same thing in this in the UK. A lot of this, when they write a support document, it isn't actually a support document. The document usually reads, Billy Bob will learn to socialize with their peers in an effective manner by the end of term. Billy Bob will learn to sit still and not disrupt the classroom by the end of term. Billy Bob will focus and do all his lessons. So they do, please be not, please be like everyone else. Please suddenly do not have a disability. And this is
essentially.
Yeah, and these are then considered support documents. And I'm thinking, these, and they go, oh, but they're measurable. And I said, yeah, so is a tiger's teeth. I don't really want to be sticking my head in there. Measurable is
Yeah.
not necessarily desirable.
Mm-hmm.
And often it's the immeasurable that is what you should be aiming for anyway. You know, a student who is not anxious, a student who is calm and settled and focused and engaged and is excited to come into class because they know they get to learn their way and that they can
Mm-hmm.
access the class and they don't feel stupid because all of the material is presented in a way that doesn't fit their brain. And I mean, I've met so many autistics who came out of school thinking they were stupid because
I've met a lot of autistics who came out of high school thinking that that maybe they had learned all the skills that were necessary for them to succeed out in the real world. But then they come out into the real world and it's like, well, geez, what are these schools actually teaching them?